And today's guest is someone who has embodied the art of realignment and reinvention. Audrey, founder of Clear Change Group. Do you believe every single human being has a purpose?
Absolutely. And it may look different during different times of their life. Well, purpose is something that comes from the inside out. And the best place to find your purpose is to actually connect with your own voice of inner wisdom. And that varies depending on the person's worldview. They could feel that purpose comes from something inside of me, like my soul, my intuition, my higher self. Or maybe in their belief system, purpose would come from something outside of them, like the universe or God or a guardian angel. But as you can tap into that inner wisdom and go deep inside yourself, that's where the answers lie.
What would you tell that young Audrey was pushing through so many things?
One of my biggest life lessons is that within every big challenge is a beautiful gift.
Welcome to Her Own Narrative, the space where women own their stories, their power, and their becoming. And today's guest is someone who has embodied the art of realignment and reinvention. Audrey, founder of Clear Change Group. She has spent over 2 decades guiding leaders and organizations towards clarity of purpose. There's one thing that we are chasing something, and there's another thing that we are returning to our purpose. Welcome,
Yes.
Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I just am so intrigued about everything that I've just said in my intro. Chasing your purpose or actually returning to your purpose, because there is so much vacuum in that in our lives nowadays. I don't know what is going on, but there is the whole world we are into. Everybody talks about, I want more. I don't know what our purpose is. I'm trying to find my purpose. What does that even mean?
Well, purpose is something that comes from the inside out. And the best place to find your purpose is to actually connect with your own voice of inner wisdom. And that varies depending on the person's worldview. They could feel that purpose comes from something inside of me, like my soul, my intuition, my higher self. Or maybe in their belief system, purpose would come from something outside of them, like the universe or God or a guardian angel. But as you can tap into that inner wisdom and go deep inside yourself, that's where the answers lie.
Wow. So, you talk about helping others find this alignment. What was the moment you realized your life was out of alignment?
Well, I was actually a software engineer for my first career because I had a background in math. And it was fun, but the injuries got to be too big. It's carpal tunnel, tendonitis, pinched nerve in my neck. And the doctor said, the next step is to fuse your neck. And so even though they offered me a raise, I'm like, no, I only have one neck. And so I had to be hit by a 2x4 to know I really needed to re-examine my life. But I was terrified because it was like I was going to get blackballed in my industry if I quit, because I was running this multi-million-dollar project with a client. But very fortunate for me, I had a friend who lost his business manager in his training company. And he said, come help me run my business and so you can leave that place. So it was like this incredible gift, I'm so grateful for it to this day. And then he wanted an internal coach and sent me to coaching school. So long story short, I fell in love with coaching. It was one of these great gifts when I thought it was a disaster. And I started growing my business while I trained someone else to take over my responsibilities at the training company.
Wow. Isn't that then when we started, you said, listen to your inner voice or listen to the signs the universe or the God is giving. Do you think
Yes.
those signs just came to you and you took them?
Well, I was very resistant at first because I was used to pushing through. Like I trained in karate and you always learn to push through the pain, push through the resistance. And I would have kept pushing if I hadn't got those injuries. And so I wasn't listening to the signs until it was like serious surgery was required. And then I was like, No, okay, I have to stop. And then the gift was the new opportunity came my way. So instead of a career ending moment, it was a career defining moment.
Wow. Amazing. So my next question was that were you chasing at what point this chasing, achieving and everything felt meaningless? And awakening was like, whoa, this is what I am actually meant to do.
Yeah, like I didn't start out with purpose coaching, but someone sent me an audio of this man, Tim Kelly, who invited to the true purpose process. And when I listened to him talking about it, it was like this gong going off in my soul, like I have to study what this man is teaching. So I trained with him, and a few of us created the True Purpose Institute. And the True Purpose process is really magical because, again, it works with that voice of inner wisdom, not just questionnaires, but tapping into that inner wisdom, which also involves addressing the doubts and fears that come up because, like, people may be afraid, well, how do I know it's a trustworthy voice I'm hearing
Yeah.
rather than the voice of the ego?
Yeah.
Or what if I neglect my family when I'm trusting this and going with my purpose?
Yes.
And so you need to work out all those doubts and fears in order to hear that voice of inner wisdom.
That is so true because sometimes, in the pursuit of finding that purpose or in the pursuit of saying this is my intuition, I can feel it in my gut. Is it actually the feeling in the gut or is it that something I'm hoping for? Where do you differentiate that? When you say listen to the wisdom, I know that's why you coach, but what would
Yeah.
we do in this conversation here? How would you try, like, the audience who's listening to us, how do we tap into it if you have to just tell us a little bit about it?
Well, the first thing really is dealing with the fears because they will block hearing that voice of inner wisdom. Again, what if I don't know how to do my purpose? Or what if I go off the rails? And so you make agreements with yourself, like going off the rails. My favorite one is I have at least 3 people that believe in what I'm doing. And so I know that if people don't follow what I'm doing, something must be crazy and I need to re-examine. Or if you don't know if it's a trustworthy voice or not, we actually have a list of criteria of what does a voice of wisdom sound like rather than a voice of the ego. And the ego is not a bad thing. It just isn't a purpose expert. The inner wisdom is the purpose expert. And so when you learn to adjust and get over your fears, I went through this myself. I was really afraid of, getting full of too much power and abusing people. But when I made those agreements with myself, it was suddenly like, oh, okay, I'm ready to hear my purpose now. And it came through, and I've never looked back. I've been doing this work for 20 years now, and it's so magical when people get that first connection to their trusted source of inner wisdom. It's just like life changing.
It's like a boom moment.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
a
just really
moment of
lightning goes off. Yeah. And then when we teach coaches to guide clients to find their purpose and connect to their inner wisdom. And so then the magic for me is when a student gets their first client that gets their first connection. And it's just like,
wow. So, I'm just finding this so intriguing because every time I speak to you, every 2 minutes when you're talking about this, you close your eyes. Yeah. And you go into yourself. And
yes.
that in itself is so intriguing because that's somebody who is a coach, a purpose expert coach, and teaching people is still sitting there and talking about it. And every single time she's speaking, she's closing her eyes to go deeper into what she's actually saying. Am I right in saying what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Because it's like tuning into the wisdom as much as I can in every moment.
Oh my gosh. So purpose, purpose, purpose. It is like we hear this all the time. In fact, I use it a lot as well because again, I think I'm fortunate enough that I feel I am trying to find, what I'm actually meant to do. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to connect people. I'm meant to, you know, talk, and I'm meant to just give voice to others. But not many of us are fortunate. And when you feel that stuck, when you're feeling that restlessness, that feeling of I'm being stuck here, but I have no idea what I want and what is missing in my life at that point, is it the fear that is taking over, or is it just ignorance?
Well, most people have doubts and fears about learning their purpose because, what if I hear it and I'm not good at it? Or what if I don't know, or if I fail? If I go for what I really want, I'll be rejected and fail. And so we find that to go deep enough, you really do need to look for what's in the way and then just figure out what do you need for that part of you to feel safe. Because it doesn't have to be all of you that's afraid, just some part of you that's afraid will block that connection, that clear, open channel to your inner wisdom.
Do you believe every single human being has a purpose?
Absolutely. And it may look different during different times of their life. Like for me, my purpose manifested as software engineering and leading teams, and now it's purpose coaching and consulting. But they all have to do with bringing clarity and flow to those who have a purpose but can't see which way to go, which is my purpose.
But it's so interesting what you just said is, that is a different purpose at different point in time in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So does that purpose entwine with responsibilities and duties as well?
Well, the way we look at purpose is that it's how you impact others, how you transform others. And so you have that purpose throughout your life, but it can express differently at different times. Like when I was with software teams, the mission to help clarity and flow with the mission was to get the team to work together, to publish on time and under budget. And there were a lot of, back when I was in software, it was very male dominated in those days. So there was a lot of turf wars and egos, but I was used to that. I grew up with 4 brothers and no sisters. And I went to Caltech where there was 8 men to 1 woman ratio. It's different now, but for me, it was just like I was used to it. But, it brings a certain amount of stress, but I got them to function together as they needed to. And then now it's helping people with all the inner parts needing that alignment to get that clarity and flow, or an organization getting the people into alignment. So it was the same purpose, but it just looked different.
Wow. Tell me one thing. Why do you think it is so important to find your purpose? Because a lot of people are actually living day to day without knowing what their purpose is. Just, this is my job. I wake up in the morning, I do X, Y, Z, and I go to bed. Why do you need to find your purpose?
Well, not everybody, some people are happy not having it. They don't care. They're just following the pursuit of what's happening, but it's subtly operating under the surface. They're just not conscious of it.
Right. Have you ever had someone coming to you or not coming to you with the conscious intention of finding the purpose, in fact, coming with the total opposite thing? Actually, I don't need a purpose.
Well, they wouldn't come to me if they didn't need a purpose.
Yeah, but sometimes you just encounter someone and you feel, what is this about? Why do I need a purpose? I'll tell you where it's coming from, because I've had very recent conversations with somebody and they are challenging this every single day. And they're like, why do we need a purpose? What does it even mean?
Yeah, well, when a purpose, there's this direction that's guiding you, and then everything feels in flow rather than going upstream. It feels in the flow. You're better at whatever you do. You're more fulfilled. You're more motivated. Things just happen, and like synchronicities happen. Just things happen that would seem like amazing when you're on purpose. Things just line up in your life.
So you're not actually chasing anything. You're not actually fighting for anything. If it's your business, business starts flowing. If it's your
Yeah.
family starts flowing. If it's love, then love starts flowing.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
wow, isn't that what everybody wants?
Yeah.
If it just flows to you, then wouldn't the world be in a better place rather than just trying to fight and chase and
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of my dreams is, if only everybody would know their purpose and have that connection to their inner guidance, what a different world it would be.
But is it that easy? Is it that easy that you come with, say, for your client coming to you, because it sounds like, oh, I found that I've got this behavioral issue and now I'm going to heal it and then I'm going to be finding my own purpose. What does this whole journey look like?
Well, when we're looking at a people pleaser part of yourself, there's a way to do a conversation with parts of yourself that need healing. It's called active imagination, journaling, and it's a Carl Jung process. So you would just put your name, say, I'd like to talk to the part of me that keeps trying to please my boss. And then you'd put part or people pleaser, whatever you want, in colon. Yeah, what do you want to talk about? And so you basically have a conversation and learn about that part. What age do they form in their life? What matters to them and what they need? And what this part in her needed, which was a lot of clients have these people pleaser parts, was to really value herself in order to be able to set boundaries with her boss. Because if she was trying to get all of her validation from the boss, it was just destroying her life and her health. And so she got to, same like me, she got to where she was having some severe enough injuries that she knew she had to make a difference.
Amazing. So for somebody who's actually in that stuck or don't know what it is or struggling health wise or emotionally or whatever, you think well, is that the first thing to do is have the conversation with yourself that which part of you is feeling stuck, which part of you is feeling trapped? Is that how it's going to start coming
Well,
out?
it usually depends on the person. Some moment you want to go with the fears and learn their purpose first and then go, oh my gosh, there's still this thing. And others may come in so severely, in pain that they would say, let's work on that part of me first. So everybody, I don't do the same thing with everybody. It's really evolves depending on what the person needs.
Yeah, very interesting. Amazing. I love it. So, um, we've spoken about your big change was when your health actually suffered because in the pursuit of what you said, you're the software engineer and you have to prove yourself and you were in the man's world. And it was like,
Yeah.
yes, I can do it. Yes, I've done it. I can keep going and pushing through. My
Yeah.
karate is good. My
Yeah.
self-defense, my everything is going to push me through this and I'm going to get to the end. But then came a point where like, I don't want that end.
I can't push anymore. That's really what happened is I could not push anymore.
So you physically could not push anymore. What was the biggest fear at that point? You were lucky that you said your friend had a
Yeah. Well,
opportunity.
my fear was that I would be blackballed and never be able to work because then I was still thinking I would need to rest and then work in the industry again. But I was so afraid I would never be able to get a job again if they heard that I left this multi-million-dollar project that I was leading. What helped is I found someone in my team who showed promise and mentored him into my role so that I didn't leave them in the lurch. But that was really, I was terrified. I won't be able to survive. How am I going to find work again? I had no idea that something else was possible.
Yes. But did you leave before you found the next job or you was that transition period? How was that transition period?
No, it was 22 years ago, and so it's a little bit vague in my memory. But no, I remember now. He offered the job to me, and then I was able to quit. But I had that transition time with the other person,
That's amazing.
so that was like this hope. Suddenly, oh my gosh, there's something else I could do, which hadn't been in my mind before because I'd done software ever since college.
So if somebody doesn't have that kind of opportunity and is feeling exactly how you felt in that job, how what would your advice be to that person? Because not everybody gets lucky that they get something
Yeah.
come through
Well,
them.
people kind of go in two paths. One is they're very conservative and keep the job they have until they find the next one or their business gets off the ground. Other people, I've had clients that they're just so stressed and so burned out, they can't think straight.
That's right.
And so they say, I have some money in the bank. I need to stop now, get clear what I want to do next because I just don't have time to think. I can't think straight. So either way goes. And I mentioned both possibilities to people.
Amazing. So interesting. I feel like we've got to have a session here ourselves because it's just I think you finding your own voice and actually somebody validating that voice isn't in itself so magical because as you said we listen to ourselves. What if this is actually ego? What if this is just a hope? What if this is not actually my purpose, but this is what I want my purpose to be? But somebody holding your hand and saying, you got to listen to it. It is fine to be
Yeah.
pursued. And I
And
think
then after you find it, there's a way to validate that it really is your purpose because your life will make sense in terms of that purpose. Like
mm,
Tim Kelly, who founded the True Purpose Method, his purpose was to show people their path. And he used to be a navigator for the Navy, but now he's a purpose consultant. And he said he used to have girlfriends that were always lost and he would have to show them their way. And so your whole life starts to make sense when you look at it. And so that's one of the great ways to know that you're accurate with your purpose.
I've got goosebumps on that. That's crazy how you start actually listening and tapping into it and then start thinking, what was the whole journey about? That
Mhm.
purpose was there all the way long, but sometimes you don't actually see it. That's absolutely mad. Obviously you have coached leaders through fears, burnouts, identity shifts, and everything. What is what we've spoken about all this very like in moderately, but what is one pattern you notice that holds people back from their purpose? Is it we've said fear, we've said all that, but there's something, if somebody who is very successful, yeah, it's the wealth is not the problem, but there's still something missing. And still at that point, they don't know how to navigate. So, what is holding that person back? What do you think it is? It's not the fear of money. It's not the fear
So
of.
it would be a different fear of like, maybe I'll look ridiculous or
Mm,
people will laugh at me because if I show what I really care about, then I'll be rejected because so many people have a false front. With close friends, they might be honest and authentic, but out in the business world, for example, and particularly in the corporate world, there's a certain presentation which is slightly removed from the authentic self.
yes. So
And so that's,
you got to maintain what you have created. How
yeah.
do
And so
you
there's
get
a
over
fear.
it, Audrey? How do you get over that fear? How do you get over your insecurities? And how do you get over what people are going to think?
Well, that's where things come in. Like, for example, one of my agreements with myself is I have at least 3 people that believe in what I'm doing, and that would be enough for me. Or when I first started, then it was that my husband supports me, but now I realize I don't care if he supports what I do or not. The 3 people is all I need. And so we've learned in this method that for every fear, there's a way to make an agreement that makes it safe, no matter what the fear is.
Talk to me a little bit more about it. This is amazing. That's so you have an agreement with yourself, and I'm saying, okay, my purpose is this. Now I have 3 people around me who actually believe in what I'm doing, and is that enough for me to push through this?
Well, that was enough for me to address that fear because I had this fear about losing my heart and, if I had too much influence, I would misuse power. And so I made an agreement with myself that I check in with my heart every day to make sure I'm still on point with my heart and not taking advantage of anybody else. And I think it was another one. Yeah, I think it was fear of rejection in the 3 people. I'm trying to remember now. It was 22 years ago when I went through the first fears. But we've learned that we just find the part that's fearful and ask that part, what does it need to feel safe? And that will give the answer. And it's not a problem having a fearful part as long as you don't take yourself to be all of that. If you identify with the fearful part, then you forget about your resourcefulness. And so there's other parts of you besides the fearful part, but we still have to take care of the fearful part so she won't block your purpose and your connection to your inner guidance.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. A lot to take in. It's magical. Imagine a world where everybody knows, and we've just touched upon this earlier as well. Imagine a world where everybody knows their purpose. Imagine a world where people aren't chasing because it's, as you said, if you know your purpose, it flows. You don't need to chase. When
Mm-hmm,
you knew
mm-hmm.
that 3 people believed in you, those 3 became 30, 13, 13 became 30, 30 became 300, and that will soon will be like a ripple effect, right? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
only those 3 that believe in you, it's like a pyramid, and
Yeah,
more people will start
yeah,
believing in you, and then it
yeah.
just starts flowing towards you. Now if everybody finds a purpose, would the businesses flow better? Would the relationships flow better? And how does it help in relationships? How does it help in a day-to-day relationship? I'm not even only talking about romantic relationships,
Mm.
with your children, with your parents, with your spouse, with your in-laws, with your staff, with your
Well,
colleagues.
when people start living their purpose, they start to trust it that they can be more authentic and show who they are because the universe rewards that.
Wow. And isn't that the most scary part to be in? If I am authentic, because till now I've created and I've lived a persona. Well, I've created a persona for myself. And suddenly if I switch to this is my purpose and I'm going to start being authentic, I can imagine a lot of us would have a massive fear about that. What if?
Yeah, well, it's something that you can do it in stages. Experiment with safe people first and see how it goes. You don't have to just be a wide open book to the world. There's some places that it's not safe to be authentic, actually. So part of that is the discernment. But then once you get more comfortable with it, when you're more authentic, other people feel safe to be authentic. And so it has that ripple effect.
So true. So once you're authentic to yourself, other people start feeling authentic. They feel safe to be authentic with
Safe to be
you.
authentic. Yeah.
But you touched upon something, there might be some people you don't feel safe to be authentic with. So you leave that on to begin with. Is there a part in the journey where you actually come and address that? And what would you do in a relationship or in a situationship like that?
Well, that would mean if you've tested it out and feel safe enough that you're just going to be authentic no matter what. And authentic doesn't mean being cruel or heartless. People can be critical and they think they're being helpful, but there's compassion in there. There's kindness. And there's an invitation, like you're welcoming people into the home of you. And then they feel safe and can relax and start to open up a little bit more. That's something that's important to me as a coach, that I create safety so that people feel safe bringing out all the corners of their psyche because they know there's going to be no judgment about it.
Yes. But coming back to, if there is somebody in your life and you think, okay, this is going to be a very judgmental place, I am being authentic and being validated from authenticity and being uh, not even loved, it's accepted for who I am. But there are still parts of my life where I'm not accepted for who I am. So do I live a dual life there? Would you suggest, what is your advice? Do you still advise that you have?
If you can, you would shrink your relationship with those people. And if it's not possible, then you have to just find for yourself, what's the balance here? How authentic can I be? And, it just depends on the situation, really.
Amazing. Amazing. Very, very interesting. This has been great. Let's talk about success, because obviously it's evolved through every chapter of your journey. Let's talk about Audrey's journey here. What has, from software engineer to a purpose expert coach, how has success changed for you? The term success.
Yeah. And it relates to people having success, but wanting more meaning. And so previously, success was an outer measurement. Like I was well respected, I got promoted, I made a good income. But now for me, success is an inner and outer thing, where you have that inner and outer alignment. So when you're on purpose and you can adjust your life to follow your purpose, knowing that you're at choice how much you want to change in your life to live your purpose. Maybe you only want to stay where you are at your job, but you bring your purpose more into it, or you might want to change. So people have that choice, but the inner and outer alignment is the inner and the outer form of success, is the way I define it now.
Amazing. Very nice. I am so intrigued with this conversation here, and I feel we need more of this. We need so many more coaches like this. We need people to find their purposes. And if you are someone who's stuck, who's feeling restless, who wants to find something, but they just don't know what's missing here, Please, let's get here and see what is missing in our lives, because isn't this going to be an amazing world where we all know we wake up with a purpose and we sleep with a purpose?
Mhm.
How exciting life could be.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. It just flows. It's fulfilling. There's a well-being that's pervasive in your life, and then that well-being ripples to other people as well. They get
I do
lifted.
have another question here, because as we're talking about purpose and well-being, not a lot of people can find their purpose, but does that necessarily mean that everything in their lives would be absolutely golden? There could still be parts where.
Yes, it's a matter of degree.
So
And
what
immense.
happens then when you find your purpose, but there's still a matter of degree of, not correct, not the ideal situations in your life still?
Yeah,
Is it
sometimes
is it that you become more tolerant, or is it what you just kind of, you're so in self-absorbed in your purpose that those things kind of start becoming irrelevant and start affecting you less?
they would affect you less when you have that clarity, that inner clarity, and looking for other outlets. Like some people go volunteer at nonprofits to fulfill their purpose because they need the steady income for the family of what they have, and they don't want to change that. Um, but real life happens, and so we get triggered. It's not like suddenly everything's all rainbows and unicorns. We
Yes.
get triggered, but when you get triggered, that usually points to some young, tender part of ourselves. And so a good question I like to ask when triggered is, what is it I don't want to feel right now? And that will point, because that trigger, that reaction is a protective thing about some tender part of ourselves. So it points to something that could use some healing.
So what you just said, what is it I don't want to feel right now? Isn't that like a very valid question before we react on anything?
As soon as you feel the reaction, if you can catch yourself at time, not always, you can't always catch yourself, but
Yeah,
if you can
sometimes we
catch
just
yourself, it's
react.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you might just say, oh, I'm just noticing that I got triggered because my mother used to talk to me that way, and now I see, and it's not really you, it's her I'm reacting to, which is different than just discerning, I don't want to be around this person, versus having a strong emotional reaction about the person that would usually point to something inside that needs attention.
Very nice. It's way too, it's so much to take in, and I'm actually intrigued. The more and more, the more we speak about it, I'm like, wow, I need to make notes here. So, if you could speak to the version of yourself standing at the edge of a big change now, knowing what you know now, while when you were younger and, didn't know what your purpose was, what would you tell that young Audrey who was pushing through so many things?
One of my biggest life lessons is that within every big challenge is a beautiful gift. And sometimes took me like a couple of years to see the gift. Like I'd been through more than one divorce, and some of them took me a while to see what was the gift. And then it was like, oh my gosh, that mission was accomplished. I'm on to something else. But
Mm.
I've seen it enough times that I really trust it, that whenever there's a big challenge, look for what's the beautiful gift inside.
So after every challenge, you might find it very difficult to push through that stage of your life. By the end of it, you will see a rainbow.
Yes.
Yes. Please. And that's what we want. We want somebody to give us hope, isn't it? At the end of the day, if everybody's got hope, that's where the faith comes from. And faith brings you hope, and hope brings you a little bit more diving inside and trusting yourself. If
Yeah.
everyone's got that, we can kind of keep going, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a certain vitality and life force that comes through more strongly when you're on purpose.
Amazing. So, what do you want every woman who's listening to us today to know about aligning her life with purpose, even if she's scared to start? Especially women, we come to this mid age as well. It's very scary to start all over again. Most of us have given up our careers. Some of us have done it, but not to our best of capabilities because we were actually, prioritizing everything else in our lives. So, or even if you are top of the careers, there's something still missing. But they're too scared. We're too scared
Yeah.
to start.
Well, what's important to know, that's one of the conditions that we agreements to make with ourselves, is that we're always at choice when, if, and how we live that purpose. We can say, okay, this is a beautiful purpose, but if my mother's Alzheimer's and I have to take care of her now, and maybe in 2 years I can pursue the purpose. But people, sometimes they're afraid to hear that voice of wisdom because they think they have to listen to it and follow it. But no, we believe that the ego and the inner wisdom are partners in this, and the ego is totally at choice because the ego has an important job taking care of the physical body. So we can say yes, no, or maybe, or I'll change a few things. Like one woman who was in software, she was a tester and she felt like something was missing. And when she learned her purpose, it was about pulling together different pieces into a cohesive whole. So she changed to a product manager, which meant she got to pull all these teams together, and then she had what she needed. She was very happy.
That's interesting. So you actually go into organizations, and when individuals find their purpose, their whole work starts flowing in a different way as well.
Mhm.
Give me another example of this. This is absolutely interesting. So do you start from the leaders or do you start from the team?
Well, so there's a difference between individual purpose and the company or organizational purpose. So with the company purpose, we actually start with a group of people to find their individual purpose, because when they've connected with their inner wisdom and know their own purpose, they're much better to learn the company purpose. But again, we have to deal with the doubts and fears. What if we can't make money doing it? So then you need to make a plan, a trial period or whatever. But then they just make a plan and start rolling it out, and depending on how much they want it to be. Like I worked with this organization that was creating an intentional community, and they wanted their purpose because they wanted to get more collaborative, better working together, and also to get a strategy for their marketing materials to help, inspire residents. And I just talked with the leader of that group a few days ago, and she says that they're very excited because November 28th, the first residents are moving in. So it's really happening. And she says it just was all about purpose. We're so on purpose right now.
So if you find if as an organization they found their purpose, they then stop worrying about how to sell.
Right, because they use their purpose in their marketing. Because when you're using purpose, we call it purposeful marketing. It's much more inspiring. It's not the standard kind of company buzzwords. It's something that touches the heart and soul of those you're wanting to reach. And so this kind of purpose isn't for every company. Some of them, they would feel that would be too woo-woo for them. But
Yes.
organizations that want to be game changers and make a real difference in the world, and they know the value of intuition along with analysis and how they operate, then it's perfect for them.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. And this has been one soulful conversation. It's not just sitting there and saying, I want my purpose and things like that. It's actually someone's there to hold our hands and say, you're okay to listen to your voice and you're okay to follow it, even if it's not right now because you're bound with your duties or responsibilities. It's okay to just give yourself grace and time to get this in your life eventually. Is that right in what I'm saying?
Mhm. Thank you so much. It's really great. You're a wonderful interviewer.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to Her Own Narrative. Audrey's story reminds us that clarity isn't about having all the answers. That's what we said. But it's about aligning with what truly matters. And what truly matters will come. You will return to it sooner or later. Thank you, Audrey. And if this has touched you, moved you, please share with that woman who's scared to start, because it's all about tapping into yourself, tapping into your intuition, tapping into what your true purpose is. Because when you find that true purpose, look at the smiles. We can't even stop smiling while talking, and we can't even stop smiling when we're working. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you so much. Thank you for having me.